Hi everyone, it's Leigh with Creative Aging from Arts Council OKC. Today we're going to do desserts, but we're going to do a little different pen and ink technique. We're going to do some stippling, which for those of you I'm sure probably know is just taking your pen and just doing lots of little dots instead of doing lines for your drawing. And I thought it's summer, let's do some desserts. So I've got some ice creams going on, and now you can choose whatever you want to do, but these will be the examples for today. So materials, number 2 pencil, ultrafine Sharpie, or really any kind of felt tip pen will work. Heavyweight sketch paper. It's just nice to have a little bit of a thicker paper doing this. Now you could certainly use copy paper, that'd be fine, and a big eraser. So, all right, let's jump in and get started. Get this stuff out of the way. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's do this here. Okay. Start with this ice cream cone. Put these two up here. And so, in typical fashion, what we're going to do is just start with a pencil outline. And you can look online, get any kind of black and white image of ice cream, sundae, pie, whatever sounds good to you. And get in the basic outline with a pencil, and then don't really worry about all the details. So what we're going to do is take your pen, whatever felt tip you use or anything, and we're just going to start dotting the outline, okay? Now let the pen do the work for you. If it's a felt tip, you don't really have to touch the paper very hard, okay? Now this is not a happy pen, but just let the pen do the work for you though, okay? This is a nice small one, and so you don't want to wear yourself out to start, okay? So we're just going to go along here, and you don't have to do them close together or anything like that. And we're just going to kind of do this kind of quickly. Now, today you're going to need a little patience, all right? This is a little different than what we're used to doing. But I'm not pressing very hard because you can wear your hand out by pressing really hard. And plus your pen won't like it. So we're gonna leave the pen lines on here, not the pen lines, the pencil lines for quite a while. So this is just to kind of give you the basics. Now, when you're doing stippling, the closer together the lines are, the darker, so something in shadow. Just remember to keep that in mind, really. That's what I meant to say. So, and over here on this side, where I know these little crisscrossy lines are, I'm going to leave those. I want to leave those kind of white, so I'm not going to go right up to those lines. And you can adjust it later. And don't worry if it isn't perfect either, because this is your first time doing any stippling, then this will be unusual enough anyway. So just the main thing is just to have fun, because I like to introduce you all to different things. So this is all we're going to be doing today, is just doing dots. But you want to make sure in your image that you know where your highlights are and where your dark contrast is, and shading and shadows. That's the only thing. And if it isn't, it doesn't have to be perfect, so you don't worry about that too much. Now, you don't necessarily have to outline it the way that I'm doing right now. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. Some people, you can just jump in and start filling it in and then worry about, because really you don't have an outline on something that's stippled. The dots make up the outline, but I was trying to keep it so that it's not too unfamiliar. you know, so you have an outline, you know, not going from just not having an outline at all. I'm trying to help you have a little transition here. So, okay. And then let's do this. This part, you know, this bottom part of the cone has a little more shading in it. So see, I'm just kind of dotting around. It's, you know, there's no right or wrong way to make these dots. You just make them. You're using this as instead of coloring in and making lines, okay? But see, by making these closer together, it, you know, gives it a lot darker look to it. So it's either darker in color or it's shaded more. So I'm going to jump in here and do some of these texture of the cone. And so I'm just staying on the inside of the pencil line. And then, so that way when I do the ones next to each other, when I erase the pencil, there will be white in between. Because that part of the cone is raised, so it's, you know, how they have the little indentation, which is what we're doing right here. So see, this isn't hard, this is just time, it just takes time. So you know me, I always like to give you lessons in patience. Patience in art. That's just you have to be patient in doing a lot of stuff with art. And a lot of people don't understand that. But you all know this, so you just keep going. And see, but you can tell already how this is turning out. So even with the pencil still there, you can see what it's going to look like. Now, I'm doing these pretty heavy so that it looks like all of them are in heavy shade. I'm not really going to focus too much on where the lighting is today. I mean, as far as having a light source over here and a heavy shadow over here. The main thing is just for you to get comfortable with doing some stippling. The image that I'm looking at has, it's much more subtle, but I thought just for you all for your first time doing this, not to really worry about that too much. But those of you who are perfectionists, feel free. This, I'm just trying to keep it, simpler for everybody. And anyone, you can do any kind of dessert, cake, pie, whatever. I just thought ice cream would be kind of fun because it's a simple shape. Cupcakes are always good too, so. I'm kind of getting a little heavy, so, but you get the idea. And so also, I'm going to jump up here to the ice cream part, is I did some line work to where I knew this was going to be more shaded. Then also, even when you're doing stippling, we're still going to do this in a directional line. Well, not in a line, but, I'm going to do this in a curve, just so that it kind of looks more three-dimensional. And I'm just kind of bouncing this pen around. Now, the one thing even about ultrafine Sharpies is they do bleed a little bit, so you can use just a regular felt tip pen so it doesn't, bleed so much. And so really whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you. But the felt tip end actually helps in doing stippling. And if you have a really hard surface underneath, I always like to put a piece of cardboard because that also gives a little bit of a cushion, and that helps too. And it seems to make it easier on your hand. So. And it's good to kind of move the pen around so it's really kind of random. The outline's a little more regimented than it really needs to be, but I just was putting that on there so you can see. But this is how it works. And you know, actually doing the shaded part, the shadier parts, is actually a little bit easier because you know you're putting the dots closer together. When you start making things lighter is when it takes a little more finesse. But like I said, today, since this is really the first time we've done any stippling, then I'm just worried about just kind of getting comfortable making all of the dots. And give your hand a break. Give your hand hard, but you shouldn't be squeezing so hard on the pen because that obviously makes it harder for you in the long run. And like I said, I'm not pressing very hard. The felt tip will let the pen help you out. But you can kind of see how this is kind of coming together. And you're just kind of getting by doing all of this, I'm just kind of getting in the basic shadows here, and then we'll come back and go over it again some more, and just you can see where you want it to be darker. And this is all about random dots. You don't want it to look, you know, distinctly placed. I know some of you who are out there thinking that, and nope, you just gotta relax on this one. And the great thing about doing lots of dots is you're not really making mistakes at all, so just keep going. Yep. All right, I just took a minute to fill in some more. You know, and then what you'll be doing is, you know, at the end, you're just gonna erase your pencil lines. That's why, you know, I have down to have a big eraser. But now just make sure you don't get up into the areas. You'll do this at the end, but I just kind of want to show you just right now how it really kind of comes together. Now this is really pretty consistently dark. I'll say it's a chocolate cone. So you can do it really just fill them in a lot just like this, or you can be a little more delicate like I was talking about a minute ago. But I think today just kind of have fun with it and figure out what you like. And the main thing is just getting used to doing the stippling. Now on this where it says yum, what I did is I took my pencil and just kind of made it a little bit fatter to make it easier on myself so that I can go in and, you know, kind of fill in around the letters, you know, and then that way I didn't accidentally go in an area that I didn't want to. And then you can see over here where I was kind of shading it, I did a little curve, you know, you just kind of curve it around. So, and like I said, you can totally do this. Stippling is really pretty, it's a simple technique. It just is, it can be tedious, but this is supposed to be fun. So it just takes some time, as I said. I'm just trying to get the basic shapes around the letters. So then I can kind of know. Then I won't, once this is in here, then I'll know, I'll feel more comfortable about doing all the dots around it. And then just kind of experiment too on some of this. You're kind of jumping around and not necessarily putting the dots so close together. because obviously where it's got the brightest highlights, there's not going to be any dots because it'll be totally white. And when you want a little bit of texture, you can. But for myself, what I did on this is I actually kind of outlined places that I knew I wanted to have in shadow. So I'm just going to kind of jump up here and do some of this. So see, I'm just randomly putting dots in. And then, you know, once you get all of your major shapes in here, then you'll go back over it and see where you want more dots. And just give your hand a break if you need it. And just remember, let the pen do the work. Don't press really hard. It's easier on your hand and the pen if you just lightly touch the paper. See, I'm just kind of going on either side of this line and just kind of going around it, giving a little bit of visual texture, but I'm not just doing a line of dots. So. And you do want to kind of keep it dot-like, so if you can keep your pen up right more, that's going to give you more of the dot effect versus if you put it on the side, because sometimes you can accidentally do little short lines by accident, and you know the stippling is about just doing little dots or so. And just take your time. There is no need to rush. Oopsie. But if you accidentally make a line, don't worry about it. Keep going. Huh. The thing that is nice about this ultrafine Sharpie is it has a smaller tip, but it's not so fine that it's a teeny tiny line or dot that would take a really long time and really wear your hand out. So we're just going to keep going. But see how it's starting to kind of come together, and we're just going to keep adding little bits. And if you kind of do things that are a little farther apart, it gives a little bit of that texture, but not a lot of heavy shading. It just kind of gives it some visual interest, but I'm just gonna keep on going. And that's one of the things that's probably, you know, is nice if you don't do all the dots around it, then you can kind of come back in and add some dots without having this distinct, you know, pattern, but that's fine. So what I can do is just, if I don't want that line really, I'll just go in and add a few more dots to it so it doesn't look like oh, here, I just did these lines in a row. So. All right, so I went ahead and finished this one, and you can see that it has a little contrast to where I went over places a little bit more with the pen to kind of bring out some darker areas. And you can kind of just play around and have fun with it, so you can have some lighter areas, and you know, it says yum, what's not to like. So I'm gonna work on this cupcake a little bit, and you know, so this is totally doable. It just takes time. So you just kind of have to figure out how you want it to look and just keep going, okay? So now we're going to start this cupcake, and on this one, I'm going to just really kind of go over the areas that I know are going to be really dark. So I know that this stuff in here, and I'm going to kind of fill in as I go a little bit. So see, I'm putting the dots really close together. So it almost looks like a line, like I'm making a line, but they're actually dots. They're bumping up against each other a little bit, but that's totally fine because this is going to be heavily in shadow. And this way it's, it's almost like an outline, but it isn't. So. And like I said, if you kind of mess up, it doesn't matter, just keep going. Just lots of dots. Okay, so this one, I'm doing it this way instead of doing a dot around the whole outline of the cupcake. So parts that I know are going to be heavily shadowed, I'm just going to do that. Okay, so you get the idea, and then down here I'm going to do this some because that's where the the cupcake is sitting on the surface. So I'm just going to doing this here. I'm just going to do this. So it looks like it's just going to, yeah. And yeah, you can add more later. I'm just trying to get some of this kind of in here. And like I said, I did what I said don't do, is I put it on its side and then made some lines. But, and just remember, take a break if you need to. Don't kill your hands, okay? So on this one, I'm just going to kind of do some shading where I want to have some little crinkly parts of the cupcake paper. And so instead of just doing a straight line, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth and around. So I'm making a line, but I'm not doing the dots in a line, basically. So like I said, there's no, perfect way, so there's no right or wrong way to do this. Now, some of you will be much more precise, and that's fine. I just kind of wanted to show you that you can kind of be a little loose with it, if you so choose. So, and then, you can get the basics in there, and then I'm going to come up here and kind of give it more of a delineation, so then it looks more like the stripes of the paper here. And then on this one, these are, you can totally make sprinkles. I'm just going to kind of jump up here for a minute. So now these stars are solid, so I will go around these and just kind of, I'm not going to color them in, but I will put dots on top of them. Dots on top of dots. So you get the idea, and I'm just going to kind of come in here and so you get the idea. Okay. And then, you know, just, I'm going to do the same thing in here. I'm just going to kind of jump around, and I'm just doing the close together dots to give the sense of the shading and shadow. And then, you know, you can totally do this differently, and you can change your, you know, I can change my mind and put an outline around the whole thing, but you get the idea. So I'm going to pause this and then just keep going and then come back and show you, because what I want to do on the cupcake part here is it's going to be a little darker cupcake, and then the icing will be a little bit lighter, but it'll have shading. So I'll be back in a minute. All right, so you can see that I went ahead and finished this one, and I did it a little differently where I didn't, you know, on this one I did the dotted all the way around it for the outline, and on this one I just kind of started, you know, dotting in where I was going to do some shadowing and shading, and don't have as hard of an edge, even though this one really doesn't have an edge. So I just wanted to show you the different ways of doing it. On this one I kept a little lighter and a little more subtle. The stars are not too subtle, but it's kind of adds some contrast. And you can also take a smaller pen and do, you know, smaller detail. But the Sharpie kind of bleeds a little bit, but that's all right too. So like I said, just kind of have fun with this. You know, stippling is a little different, and just take your time. You know, this is something for you to enjoy. And cupcakes and ice cream cones, nice simple shapes. You can also do ice cream sundaes, you know, whatever you want. But I thought it'd be nice to just try something a little different. So stippling, you can totally do this. It's just dots, lots of dots. Just be patient with yourself and just take your time. All right, I look forward to seeing what you guys are doing, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.